Hello! If you've ever been on a canal in Britain, whether as a boater or just wandering down the towpath, you can't have failed to have noticed the traditional canal art, either on the boats themselves or on the paraphernalia on the roofs. But what's it all about? Why is it all roses and castles? And how do you paint that kind of thing? Well, that's what today's video is all about. Aboard narrowboat P Green, a rather delightful 32-footer, you'll find canal artist Kay Andrews, along with her pots of paint and brushes. She's also a historian.
Canal art is really a form of English folk art, and different styles grew out of the different boatyards across the country. So you would have a master painter who was teaching his apprentices how to paint, and they would learn the style from that master painter.
But like so many aspects of the canals, the origins of such painting is undocumented. It just happened and spread and became the norm, without anyone formally making a note of how it came about.
The first mention of it came in 1858 from somebody who was writing about a canal journey that he took in the hold of a working boat, and he describes in this piece about how there was a water can on top of the boat, and he describes the back cabin. It's those kind of little snippets of history that we find. It's not written about as a big project, but it just appears in other stories about the canals.
That description from 1858 was published in Household Words magazine and reads as follows. The boatman lavished all his taste, all his rude, uncultivated love for the fine arts, upon the external and internal ornaments of his floating home. His chosen colours are red, yellow and blue, all so bright that when newly laid on and appearing under the rays of a midday sun, they are too much for the unprotected eye of the unaccustomed stranger. The two sides of the cabin, seen from the bank and the towing path, present a couple of landscapes, in which there is a lake, a castle, a sailing boat and a range of mountains. A new 2-gallon water can, shipped from a bankside painter's yard, displayed no fewer than 6 dazzling and fanciful composition landscapes, several gaudy wreaths of flowers, and the name of its proud proprietor. At Foxton Locks Canal Museum, halfway up the 10-lock flight, manager Penny Arscott has a collection of both modern and antique canalware, which clearly shows differing styles by different artists. Contrast these two so-called Buckby cans. The one painted by Ron Huff has a more broad brush impressionistic type of rose, whereas the one painted by William Hodgson is much more intricate in the detail. Hodgson's style attracted an unusual nickname.
For some reason they got the nickname Knobstick. And they don't know really why it was nicknamed Knobstick, but one of the sort of reasons, I think it was because of the canal company's officer who was keeping an eye on the canal boats and everything, and he used to walk around with a silver-headed cane, and they think it might be related to that. And the painting of the canal boats and of the painted ware became Knobstick canal art.
Apart from roses, the other classic element of canal art is medieval castles, as shown on the top of this stool. But why roses and castles? How are they significant to canal boats? Unfortunately, I can't tell you, and neither can anyone else for sure.
There is lots of sort of bad history about why we have roses and castles. Nobody really knows why it's there. Possibly influences from the potteries in the early 19th century that might have influenced the painting that was going on. But you see roses appearing on ceramics and all sorts in that sort of early time period, and maybe it just carried over into the boats. It's like folk art that you see across Norway, Germany, all over the place. It's very similar to that, but nobody really knows exactly where it came from. If anything, the canal art may predate the Roma and Sinti style of painting that you see on the vans, because the vans, as far as I'm aware, came in a little bit later than some of the canal art did. So it's more that this probably predates, but nobody really knows why.
Painting roses is one thing, whether detailed like William Hodgson or more abstract like Ron Huff, but castles demand even finer detail.
I think they're quite hard. They seem to take much longer to do. And again, you get different styles of castles coming out of different boatyards as well. And you can quite often tell where the castle painting came from by the style of the windows and the colours that they use. And there is a formula to them as well. So you do get into a habit of painting in a particular order with them.
And again, the detail-oriented William Hodgson had a very particular style when it came to his castles.
The castle is usually in the middle of the panel. Either it's on a hill and you've got mountains in the background and you've got a boat, or like a sailing boat, not a canal boat, or and bridges as well in these pictures. And it's sort of like these are the typical sort of elements that you see in them. And on this can that we have here, you can see it's a beautiful sort of scene around the bottom of the can, and it's got like a couple of castles and it's got the hills, and it is absolutely gorgeous. And his roses are amazing.
For Kay, canal artistry was something she discovered a talent for rather by chance.
I started about 5 years ago, and it was really a bit of a quirk of fate that I ended up painting, having bought a canal boat which was decorated with canal art. I decided that I wanted to learn a little bit more about it. To begin with, I taught myself, and then when I realised that there were certain things with it that I wasn't quite getting right, I spent a day with Julie Tonkin. And Julie's a well-known waterways artist, and she was very kind in sort of sharing her knowledge with me on how to do it. The paint I use is Craftmaster signwriting enamel. It's very high pigment colour in it, which means that it's very bright and thick, and it's also hard wearing as well. It's spirit-based paint. Brushes, I use sable brushes, and they just have a nice movement to them, and they're, a good point on them as well. The paint is heavy on your brush and you have to get the consistency right. I think most people could probably have a go at it and make a good effort at it, quite honestly. With a bit of practice and learning how to hold the brush and to make sure the paint's the right consistency.
On the working boats, this type of art would brighten up not just water buckets, but many parts of the boat, like this tunnel lamp and stool on display at the museum. And today, people bring Kay a vast array of items for decoration.
They bring me coal buckets, teapots, mugs, things like chopping boards that I've just done today, wooden spoons. I like to paint things that are usable. So although I do a lot of decorative pieces that you can just hang on the wall, or horseshoes, that type of thing, I like items that people can take away and make use of.
The most traditionally useful item was this kind of jug, and they're known generally as buckby cans, although this isn't always totally accurate today.
Originally, the water cans which were carried on top of the boats were painted at Long Buckby Wharf, and on that part of the Grand Union there was a whole kind of industry for canal boats and narrowboats, and that's where the boat people would go to pick up their painted Buckby cans. So that's why they're known as Buckby cans, because they came from Long Buckby Wharf. So today, if you're being a purist, you shouldn't refer to them as Buckby cans, you should refer to them as Buckby style cans.
If you'd like to buy any of Kay's painted canalware or attend her painting course, I've left a link to her website in the video description, and she's always on the lookout for new things to apply her skills to.
I think I enjoy finding different pieces to be able to paint on, so I'm always looking for sort of old vintage pieces that I can bring to life and upcycle with my painting. And also doing the traditional things like the Buckby style watering cans. I think again, there's so much work that goes into them, and you start with a blank piece of metal, and actually the whole process, when you get to the end, you kind of go, yeah, that's all right.
Thanks for watching. I hope, as always, that you enjoyed it. Cheerio.